Here's the Politico thing. Okay. Exclusive. Thousands of leaked messages show leaders of young Republican groups joking about gas chambers, slavery, and rape in a private Telegram chat. Inside the rising GOP leaders' racist chats obtained by Politico spanning more than 7 months. I will be honest. I don't think this kind of stuff has motion anymore. I don't think people care. It's the least surprising thing of all time. But you have to remember, this kind of stuff only mattered if people in positions of power actually had a sense of dignity and shame. On the Democratic Party side, I think there is still some semblance of dignity and shame, or at least like an aesthetic posture towards dignity and shame, which they often weaponize against their enemies, or try to weaponize against the Republicans. It doesn't work, but they try to weaponize against like their left flank, and it does kind of work because the left is the only suckers in the game that are super predisposed to not understanding like the complexities of human beings and will measure you on the virtues of like what you represent in that immediate moment. But even when it goes above and beyond, when these guys are actually playing out these desires that they joke about in group chats, I just don't think that it works anymore. I think it just, especially for the right, it does not work. I guarantee everyone in that group chat knows who you are and hates you. Oh, for sure. These are the extremely online young Republicans. Of course they hate me. It's just this kind of stuff. Do you want to know why this kind of stuff doesn't matter? Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. When did we bring that site out? You're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. You want to know why this kind of stuff doesn't work? Because all of the forces that even remotely acted as though they care about anti-Semitism have in the last 2 years shown their true face, which is that they only care about anti-Semitism accusations as long as they can weaponize that against people who are anti-Israel. Okay? The other reason why this stuff doesn't matter anymore is because of the weaponization of shamelessness demonstrated by the Republican Party. And last but not least, look at Twitter. This kind of communication is no longer just done in private chat groups that actually showcase people's secret opinions. People say this stuff publicly and get hundreds of thousands of views on Twitter. The permission structure for neo-Nazi sentiment has expanded. The permission structure for being a reactionary has expanded dramatically. Okay? A part of that, and I think about this all the time, a part of that I think is just the way we communicate and the way we spend time online. As more and more of our interpersonal communication development actually takes place in an environment that is utterly removed from like your all of the other markers of what makes you a human being, where you can't tell if the other person on the other side of the screen is actually a fully fleshed out adult with a fully functioning brain or an absolute sociopath. You end up assuming neutrality across the board. You end up assuming, I think, that the person that you're communicating with online is basically you on the other side. Like their background resembles you to a certain degree. Sometimes I'm reminded that that is not the case when, I don't know, one of these like Twitter accounts will be like, I'm 21, or they'll talk about like age gap relationships or something, like a political account that I follow. We'll talk about like age gap relationships. It'll be like a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old should never date. And I'm like, oh my God, you're literally a child. Like that's when I remember that like I'm getting information from an actual child. Okay. And I think this environment, the way that we, the more we communicate almost exclusively online, the more vicious we become as well. And I'll give you one example of this, right? I think you're wrong. This still does matter in political circles. I believe all but one of the people mentioned in this article have been fired from their jobs or resigned. We're not at peak acceptance of racist garbage and shamelessness yet. Scary, it could get worse. Maybe. But I think if that was the case, Turning Point USA would have been shuttered a long time ago, especially considering that this is exactly what TPUSA used to do all the time. And look where TPUSA is now. Charlie Kirk just got a posthumous Medal of Honor today. And for years and years and years, we saw Turning Point USA get, for years and years, we saw Turning Point USA get this kind of coverage over and over again. And look where it's at now. Yeah, Big Balls remained in government after his racist messages got leaked. I think they just don't care. I think people don't care, especially because the administration is openly putting to policy what these opinions actually are behind closed doors. When you have an administration that is also posturing as though they want to defend whiteness in this country, yeah, of course the people that are champions of that cause behind closed doors are going to be even more gross. Okay? This is what I mean when I say that the permission structure has expanded so dramatically on the right. On the one hand, you can't have a conversation about like the violent retaliation to the endless amounts of violence that colonial subjects receive without being branded a terrorist. It's completely unacceptable. You can't say that. You can't even say that like Hamas is a national emancipatory group and has no like jihadist or Salafist ambition beyond that without being branded a terrorist. But on the other hand, you could just literally talk about like you can't trust Jews. This is exactly the type of rhetoric that unironically is no longer hidden behind closed doors. I think it's like out in broad daylight. Nah, dog, the Republicans don't care, but the vast majority of people care about this. You have no idea how many white Facebook Live wine moms I have seen share the story. I hope the liberal wine moms will defend us. Okay?
Thousands of messages shared in a group chat of young Republicans is revealing some racist thoughts that they even worried about being leaked. Well, those exchanges have been leaked, obtained by Politico, and are part of a Telegram chat among young Republican leaders in the following states: New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. New York State politics reporter Jason Bieferman is one of the journalists who wrote about this for Politico. Jason, tell us about this story, how it came to you, and what...
This is the least shocking revelation for someone like myself. Maybe that's what it is. Because, like, of course they're like that. Politico report on a group of chat of young Republicans. Does this reflect some bad apples? Some bad apples. These are the future of the Republican Party. This is so vile, it's hard to find the words to put in the context that these are people who are part of one of two major parties that they believe in gas chambers and rape and discrimination based on the color of people's skin. And for me, when I hear stuff like this, I'm like, have you seen the Republican Party's policies? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when I hear this kind of stuff, I think to myself, like, how is this shocking? Because we are, and I mean this sincerely, we are like 2 election cycles, if election cycles happen at all going forward. We are 2 election cycles away from the president speaking like that. Okay? I'm going to be honest. That's what it feels like to me. Like, because the policies already reflect this desire, this vile attitude that people have. And slowly but surely, the Republicans have redesigned political discourse in this country to make people, sometimes by force, be much more open towards this kind of ridiculous, fascist, violent policy making. For us, it's a fork found in the kitchen moment, but for people who are less tapped in, it genuinely is upsetting to see. It's also especially insane because people in the older generations, especially older libs, don't see people in Gen Z and Gen Alpha talking like this because they see the younger generation as a hopeful generation that will fix everything. Yeah, for me, it's not even fork found in the kitchen. It's just like this is fork found in the fork factory, because I've known that the young Republican crop is almost entirely groped up. You know? Yeah, Hitler Youth found beside Hitler. Like, for us in this community, for us in this chat, for as tuned in as we are to like the back and forth and the commentary on the right-wing spaces nowadays, does this come even remotely as a surprise to you that a group chat of young Republicans leaked and it reflects the virtues, the values that you see from young Republicans that publicly posture in this way all the goddamn time? For me, I'm like, yeah, of course they're saying this. Of course they are. This is what they openly say as well, oftentimes under the guise of anonymous accounts. Oh, yeah. Speaking of fork found in the kitchen, breaking: MAGA pastor who wore Charlie Kirk's freedom shirt and sermon arrested for soliciting minors and distributing child sex abuse images. Wow. How shocking. What? How? Oh, my God. Another one? Wow, remarkable. Let me tell you how confused I am, okay? This is confusing to me. I am a guy who was born yesterday. I actually just got out of a coma. Yeah, fork meat kitchen moment number 750,000. Let's continue.
Was exchanged in these Telegram messages.
You are born yesterday or just got out of a coma? Decide. Both. I was born yesterday and I was comatose. And today I woke up out of that coma.
Based on what your reporting has revealed.
Politico obtained over 7 months of thousands and thousands of messages in a Telegram group chat between, like you said, leaders in the Young Republican state organizations in Arizona, New York, Kansas, and Vermont. Now, it's kind of a misnomer, Young Republicans, because it's called the Young Republicans, but these are, full-grown adults, 18 to 40 years old. And over the course of these 7 months, they exchanged messages with, extremely anti-Semitic and racist comments. They referred to Black people as monkeys or the watermelon people.
I saw a lot of chatters go 40, Lamau, Young Republican. Yes, for the Republican Party, 40 is young. Come on now. Yes, bro. Anyway, I can't make up my mind. I'm the leading chief counsel of the ADL, and I can't make up my mind until I find out what these people's positions are on Israel. Once I figure out if they're pro or anti-Israel, I will really reconsider whether or not I have decided that this is truly anti-Semitic or just a bunch of young guys having fun.
People, they called rape epic. They talked about the love of Hitler with factions of their party, or even supporting slavery. This was a chat with members elected to lead their states within a prominent Republican youth political organization that numbers 15,000 people. And they were in a campaign to lead this organization nationally. My colleague and I, my colleague Emily Ngo, we really looked into this and wanted to see, why are they speaking like that to each other? And does this have anything to do with kind of the way that the norms of our political discourse have been changing?
Yeah, ADL thought watermelon people referred to Palestinians, so they were like, this is actually A-okay. Because remember, I have heard, that's the new meta. I've heard that from bot accounts, bot accounts that refer to the pro-Palestinian crowd as watermelon people.
Some would say since President Trump came to power.
It's just, bro, the Department of Homeland Security is literally Groyper posting every day, bro. They are literally straight up Hitler posting. Oh my God, these are the racist Nazi losers. Of course they are. Oh my lordy, holy moly. Oh, it is, dude, this is why fascism is a loser ideology, okay? It is a loser ideology. It's an ideology that you only abide by if there is something lacking in your life, okay? And it's not because they're thick and chunky. There's plenty of thick, chunky boys out there who are fighting the good fight. But you can see them reeking with insecurity. Fascism is the ideology of losers. They have no great ambition to redesign society in an equitable fashion. They have no interest in helping others. They simply are constantly engaging in battle, and in some instances violence, to restore a mythological project of person, because it's something that they lack internally. They have something that's missing, and that insecurity causes them to fantasize about the entire in-group being this superior, playing a superior role in society, and we have to reassert dominance in this way. That's what it is. That's what I've seen in so many circumstances. When you're lacking something in your life and you have a sense of overwhelming entitlement, and your personal experiences in the real world do not match what you thought society owed you, you turn to ideologies like fascism. Okay? That's when you do it. You turn to an ideology like fascism because we're big and strong, actually. We're descendants of Vikings. We're descendants of great Roman legionnaires. We're descendants of Romans, which is really interesting because Rome was an unimaginably diverse empire. Like, these guys would literally look at like all of those like 5'4" North African dudes and be like, these were this is the beacon of white excellence. Like, this doesn't make any sense, but it's just you only go back to this mythological higher being and what your personhood actually represents, this broad unit that you're a part of that is destined by God to dominate, if you are deeply insecure about what's going on in your immediate life. And sometimes the inflection could be something as stupid as like not getting pussy. Okay? Straight up. Just like other people get laid, I can't. Why not me? I deserve it as well. If only they knew that I was at the top of the racial pecking order. Hasan, better watch your knees. What does that mean? Are you saying I'm old? Because you're not wrong. I am getting there. I'm getting up there in age. A friend of mine got blackmailed to leak in these chats. A total coward, a useless piece of shit. One of the people in here, he attended his wedding with me and still sold him over to the devil, all for some useless YR beef, young Republican beef. And then the GOP condemned them. These people. The GOP threatened to fire my friend and vice chairman from his AG job because of TikToks I posted about immigration. I wasn't allowed to talk about replacement theory or any mainline immigration stances. They asked me to resign over Trump's green card diploma mill comments. I was blacklisted by Young Republican National and blocked by their accounts because their leader is a BLM sympathizing closet case. Oh, the GOP tried to fire my friend. Everyone in this article is a patriot, and everyone attacking them is a dirty, treacherous, impotent, cowardly bundle of sticks. They all deserve to be destroyed. I like that Evan says, own your beliefs. I think he is, to be fair. To be fair to the neo-Nazi, it seems like he is owning his beliefs. He's saying that the Republicans or the Republican Party broadly is not owning their beliefs. A bundle of sticks, I assume, is the F slur, right? That's what he's like. I guess he isn't owning his beliefs in that regard because he won't say the F slur. Instead, he's just saying bundle of sticks. He is whining about the leak, though, is Evan's point. True. All right, let's get to the article. The article is titled, I Love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. They refer to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and a lot of Republicans who they believe support slavery. William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republican vice chair, used the words N-word and variations of a racial slur more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans at the time, referred to rape as epic. Peter Junta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Junta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should be chair of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40 years old. I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers, he continued. Two members of the chat responded. Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. When do we start bullying, dude? We have a solid 3 people who can probably have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gas? When do we bring that side out? I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We want only true believers. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We got to pretend that we like them. Hey, come on in. Take a nice shower and relax. Boom. They're dead. Gas chambers is a Dutch oven. That's... He's gonna fart and put the covers over their heads so hard that the person is going to be driven to suicide. Also, it doesn't make sense. Gas chambers absolutely fit the Hitler aesthetic. What is this guy saying? Not to be that guy, but like, is that just like, is he also like denying the Holocaust while demanding more of it? Because it kind of feels like it, where he's literally, he goes, can we fix the showers? As in like, you know, it's like a common Holocaust denial, while simultaneously, like guess he wrote that. Next sentence reveals the statement. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers who don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. Joe Maligno, who previously identified himself as general counsel for the New York State Young Republicans, wrote back. He just thinks that they only use shower traps and not actual gas chambers because he's historically illiterate. I'm ready to watch people burn now. Annie K. Katie. That's what Annie K. Katie? New York's National Committee member said. The exchange is part of a trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico and spanning more than 7 months of messages among young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. The chat offers an unfiltered look at how a new generation of GOP activists talk when they think no one is listening. Since Politico Katie. Since Politico began making inquiries, one member of the group chat is no longer employed at their job, and another's job offer was rescinded. Prominent New York Republicans, including Representative Elise Stefanik and State Senate Minority Leader Rob Ort, have denounced the chat. And festering resentments among young Republicans have now turned into public recriminations, including allegations of character assassination and extortion. The 2,900 pages of chats shared among a dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January and mid-August chronicled their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. Many of the chat members already work inside the government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. Together, the messages reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where the Trump-era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as the party's next leaders. The more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it's been with the emergence of Trump and more right-wing GOP even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and in public, said Joe Fagan, a Texas A&M sociology professor who has studied racism for the last 60 years. He's like, I've been studying racism for the last 60 years, and let me tell you, okay, gotten so much more open, which is ironic because that's literally what I've been saying. So I guess you don't have to be a professor of racism to recognize this, okay? This man is a professional racist. This man is a doctor of racism, okay? It turns out your boy, your dumb favorite Twitch streamer, also has a doctorate in racism, maybe a PhD. I'm an engineer of racism. This is Annie Kate. Annie K. Katie, Bobby Walker, and Peter Junta and Joe Maligno are the ones that talk shit here, lol. What's up with young Republicans, bro? They always look the same way. What is this aesthetic? Anyway, but yeah, see, look, young people and older people use the expanded permission structure of jokes or racist quips left and right in an effort to normalize this kind of behavior, normalize this kind of attitude. And that normalization also obviously revolves around the policy-making apparatus. In the past, Republicans used to still have racialized policies. That much is true, right? But nowadays, they also openly say that they're doing this for racial animus. And the more this becomes commonplace, I think the more it softens people's approach. The more it makes people, it makes people feel comfortable with this kind of approach. He's also concerned that the words would be applied to public policy. Is chilling, of course, because they will act on these views. Except, unlike Joe Fagan, I am not a professor of racism for the past 60 years. I'm a professor of racism for the past 34 years. Okay? And let me tell you, they've already been applying this stuff. They're just getting more ruthless openly and also communicating the ruthlessness of these policies without trying to even shelter the broader public from the racialized element. There will come a point when I think you no longer actually fear that you no longer actually fear to be called a fascist, and you wear it as a badge of honor. The dynamic of easy racism and casual cruelty played out in open, dark, vivid fashion inside the chats where campaign talk and party gossip blurred into streams of slurs and violent fantasies. The group chat members spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to avoid being called a rhino, the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and the president's alleged work to suppress documents related to wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein's child sex crimes. Trump's too busy burning the Epstein files, Alex Dwyer, the chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, wrote in one instance. Dwyer and K. Katie declined to comment. Maligno and Hendricks did not return requests for comment, but some involved in the chat did respond publicly. Junta claimed the release of this chat is part of a highly coordinated year-long character assassination led by Gavin Wax and the New York City Young Republican Club, an allusion to a once obscured internecine war that is now spilled out into the open. These logs were sourced by way of extortion and provided to Politico by the very same people conspiring against me, he said. What's most disheartening is that despite my unwavering support of President Donald Trump since 2016, rogue members of his administration, including Gavin Wax, have participated in this conspiracy to ruin me publicly simply because I challenged them privately. Wax, a staffer in the Trump State Department, formerly led the New York Young Republican Club, a separate city-based group that is at odds with the state organization, the New York State Young Republicans. He declined to comment. Despite his allusions to infighting, Junta still apologized. I am so sorry for those offended by the insensitive and inexcusable language found within the more than 28,000 messages of a private group chat that I created during my campaign to lead the Young Republicans, he said. While I take complete responsibility, I have had no way of verifying the accuracy and am deeply concerned that the message logs in question may have been deceptively doctored. At least one person in the Telegram chat works in the Trump administration, Michael Bartels, who, according to his LinkedIn account, serves as a senior advisor in the Office of General Counsel within the U.S. Small Business Administration. Bartels did not have much to say in the chat, but he didn't offer any pushback against the offensive rhetoric in it either. He declined to comment. He's probably thinking, oh my God, thank God I didn't say in there, bro. Oh my Lord. Also, are you Michael Burgles? What are these names, man? A notarized affidavit signed by Bartels and obtained by Politico also sheds light on the intra-party rivalry that led to the Restroyer War Room Telegram chat to be made public. Bartels references Wax as well. He wrote that he did not give Politico the chat and that Wax demanded in a phone call that he provide the full chat log. When I attempted to resist that demand after providing some of the requested information, Wax threatened my professional standing and raised the possibility of potential legal action related to an alleged breach of non-disclosure agreement. Bartels claimed in the affidavit. My position within the New York Young Republican Club was directly threatened. Walker, who now leads the New York State Young Republicans, touched on a similar theme, saying that he believes portions of the chat may have been altered, taken out of context, or otherwise manipulated, and that the private exchanges were obtained and released in a way that clearly intended to inflict harm. He also apologized. There is no excuse for the language and tone of the messages attributed to me. The language is wrong and hurtful, and I sincerely apologize, Walker said. I am going to once again explain something that I have said for years. Ronald Reagan was a monster. Ronald Reagan was a racist. Ronald Reagan openly advanced racist policies both at the governor's office and as president. Okay? But liberals still revere him. Only until they found out that Ronald Reagan called African diplomats monkeys who don't know how to wear shoes did some liberals turn around and go, oh, wow, that's so racist. If you recall, that was recently at the time, it was like a newly recovered tapes between him and Nixon, their private correspondences. Okay. And liberals were like, oh my God, I can't believe how racist Ronald Reagan is. And it's like, dude, look at his policies. Of course he's racist. What are we talking about? And it's like, it's always shocking to me that the administration right now that is acting out the desires of these young Republicans, who sometimes even use the language that these young Republicans are using, with the exception of basically saying the N-word or wholeheartedly endorsing Adolf Hitler, okay? With those two exceptions, they are advancing Hitlerian policy. But unfortunately for the average American, they can't comprehend that. They just look at state violence, or they look at the agenda of the federal government as just the agenda of the federal government. They cannot comprehend that this is just pure Hitlerian domestic fascism until they hear Donald Trump say the N-word, and I don't mean nuclear, the other N-word. I don't think people will assume that Donald Trump is like a racist person. I don't think the overwhelming majority will assume that. And by that point, it might have been normalized anyway. Look at this other young Republican law. Mike Johnson's friend Bobby Walker said rape is epic. Dude, what is happening? Look at how jolly this person looks. You shouldn't be saying that, little man. You should not be saying things like that. The kid from Up. What do you say? What do you say? What do you do? Behold the master race, the Heil Titler Brigade, once again. Awesome. That dude sounds like this when he walks. Bumba dum ba dum ba bumbity bumba dum. Bumba bumba. it's just like, I don't know. I have a lot of opinions on this. On the one hand, it's like these guys have basically decided that vice signaling shows your honesty, your earnesty. Okay. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. On the Republican side, they have fully adopted villainous behavior. Okay. They see that as being real. And I'm afraid that even a lot of normies who get brain broken by correspondence online also kind of feel that way. This is something that I criticized a while back when people would come after me and Pokey and be like, you guys are, Disney streamers, right? You're bad, you're wrong. And it's like, and I think a part of that was because like people on the other hand who like present themselves as like bad dudes or advocate for awful shit or make edgy jokes, those people were seen as like honest. Those are content creators that were being real, right? Because on the internet, it's very difficult to figure out if the person that is on the other side of the screen is being a real one, right? So most people assume that any sort of graciousness, any sort of open-mindedness, it immediately means you're being fake, you're being phony, you're just fake nice, you're fake nice, you're fake nice. You couldn't possibly be real nice. And it's really interesting because no matter how evil someone is on the internet, no matter how evil they present themselves on the internet, in the real world, they would never in a million years behave that way. Okay? That's the difference. I think we need to expand on that, right? We need to think about that. You wouldn't say that shit to my face. Might come across as like some truism or a trope, something silly that people say, but in reality, it is actually an accurate reflection that we are much more mean to one another. We're much meaner to one another on the internet as opposed to in the real world, because there are so many other factors in the real world that come into play when you can actually hurt someone, both physically or mentally, when you can watch their anguish. All of a sudden, when you're not anonymous, the way that you approach people changes dramatically. You become an infinitely kinder person. Okay? The real world has real world consequences. I say this as someone who does not have any sort of anonymity in my life. I say this as someone whose every single action is constantly placed under a microscope by people who are heavily scrutinizing it specifically so they can present me as a bad person. Okay? So I live at that intersection of like being a real human being on the internet with my face, and I'm constantly being treated like I'm not a real human being. Okay? So I see this every day. And I think it genuinely stems from the way that online has reshaped interpersonal communications in its entirety. I think that's part of the reason why people feel much more confident expressing these sorts of desires in private group chats, and maybe even feel confident expressing these sorts of desires in the form of white nativist policy and in the ways that they promote it openly on the internet. I guess this is the longest way to say the internet is making us more mean. Okay? Mixed into formal conversation about whipping votes, social media strategy, and logistics, the members of the chat slung around an array of slurs, which Politico is republishing to show how they spoke. Epithets like the F slur, R-worded, and the N-word, soft A, appeared more than 251 times combined. In one instance, Walker, who at the time was a staffer for ORT, talked about how a mutual friend of some in the chat dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time. Ginta responded that the woman was not Indian. She just didn't bathe often. Samuel Douglas, a state senator from northern Vermont, the head of state's Young Republicans, replied to Ginta. What's crazy about it is like, what's crazy about this anti-Indian hatred is that like for the longest time, this kind of like anti-Indian sentiment was fairly limited, I would say, in like mainstream discourse, because in comparison to Canada or in comparison to the UK, there's just not a lot of like Indian people or Pakistani people in America as a significant minority population. I feel like they learned this from the European races. It's everywhere now. It's like unstoppable. And it blows my mind because like Americans, Americans don't really know the P slur, for example, right? Like I used to talk about that all the time. Like the P slur, Pakistani shortened to the first 4 letters, is not known in the United States of America as like a common slur. And it's really interesting because it's so not known as a common slur that like I think George W. Bush once famously said it and didn't realize that he was saying a slur and had to apologize for it. Whereas in Canada or in other places, in other British colonies, where there is a higher density of brown migrants, specifically from places like India and Pakistan, that is like a slur that people know. And it's a big no-no. It's very interesting. I guess what I'm trying to say is the racism doctorate recipient here is that Americans have advanced on their racism. And you're confusing George Bush with KSI? No, dude. Act presidential, the linguistic faux pas, an embarrassment. In yesterday's speech advocating for peaceful negotiations between longtime rivals India and Pakistan, President Bush stressed that the U.S. is working hard to convince both the Indians and the bleep that there's a way to deal with their problems without going to war. The White House said Bush had no idea the P word was considered an ethnic slur. Yeah, that's a lie. No, dude. Dude, come on. Why would you believe that? Because I know how stupid George W. Bush is. And I think some of you are too young. That's how his advisors spoke? Maybe. But I think George W. Bush is notoriously stupid. This is probably true. It's unlikely that Bush would want to upset Pakistan given its importance to the cause of the moment. However, Bush's offhanded, if unwitting insult, the White House's subsequent dismissal of it, and the fact that the whole ordeal was largely ignored by the American media will only worsen the United States' already lousy international sensitivity record. Yeah. The reason why they largely ignored this is because in America, people don't know that as like a slur. That's probably the reason why they largely ignored it. Anyway, the broader point that I was trying to make is that like Americans don't know this because Americans don't have didn't have the advanced racism of other British colonies, especially against, like, this doesn't mean that there wasn't anti-Indian hatred, for the record. Make no mistake. Of course there was. But it was like making fun of Indians for owning 7-Elevens or something. You know what I mean? It wasn't like as advanced as the Euro-style anti-Indian hatred is. I'm Pakistani American, and most other Pakistanis I know didn't even know it was a slur at all. Yeah. In America, the most common form of racism I feel like that Indians experienced was when people asked them if they're a 9/11 brown person or a 7-Eleven brown person. Like that was what they would that's what they would say. Americans, I'm trying to explain, are indiscriminate in their discrimination. Okay? They don't have the advanced mind of a Euro style racist, if that makes sense. It's just they don't really care. They're like, you're not white. That's all I care about. Okay, you look kind of brown to me, boy. And that's their starting point. You know, calling all Asians Chinese, stuff like that. I can't tell if that's more advanced or less advanced racism when you really think about it. Because I feel like with accelerated transphobia, for example, like the most transphobic people know about trans culture that like the average trans person doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like they've studied the ancient tomes of like trans medical research and specifically to be more hateful, more successfully. Okay? More sophisticated versions of hatred. Anyway, let's just get back to it. In a separate conversation, Ginta shared that his flight to Charleston, South Carolina landed safely, then offered some advice for his fellow young Republicans. If your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no-no word, Ginta wrote. Douglas did not respond. Dude, what is up with this shit, bro? These, I feel like maybe they believe it. This is like unbelievably childish that it always made me feel like, oh, they're just saying that because they want to signal to other people that they're the right kind of racist. But like who the makes this calculation, bro? Honestly, like there's never been a moment in my life where I have been fearful of a person that is in control of my destiny on the virtue of the color of their skin. Okay. I just cannot comprehend how little you must trust the institutions and how confident you are in like racial superiority that you don't just say it because you want others to believe it, but you personally believe that like a brown woman is incapable of commanding your flight. That's so stupid. Okay, Disney streamer. No, I think this is being a dumbass. Like, this isn't a virtuous position, man. Like, I need you to understand something. I'm not being like, oh, look at how woke I am. I don't get scared when a brown woman is my pilot. Like, that's a psychotic thing to even say. Okay? Like, that's not a demonstration of virtue. Okay? That's just being a normal human being who understands the unimaginable amounts of training that is required for someone to become a pilot to begin with. Like, I understand the background. Okay? I understand the background and what it takes to get to that point, specifically so that planes aren't falling out of the goddamn sky. Whereas these unironically believe it seems. Like I thought that they were just saying DEI because they cynically want more white men to be in positions of power. I didn't realize that they were saying DEI because they're genuinely fearful of black and brown people, because they genuinely believe black and brown people are inferior. I thought they just kind of cynically said that. Does that not make sense to you? Do you like, it's just, I feel like this is, sorry, not being a dumbass is woke. Yeah, literally. I guess that's where we're at now. Oh my God. You're virtue signaling because you're not the stupidest person I've ever encountered in my entire life. In a statement, Ort called for members of the chat to resign. I was shocked and disgusted to learn about the racist, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic comments attributed to members of the New York State Young Republicans, Ort said. This behavior is indefensible and has no place in our party or anywhere in public life. Really? Because this statement right here was very famously channeled by a posthumous Medal of Honor award recipient that got a Medal of Honor after his untimely demise today. His name was Charlie Kirk. Maybe he didn't say it like this, but he said things, in that same field. Oh, Medal of Freedom. Sorry, not Medal of Honor. Notable, in light of many revelations in Politico's report, subjects direct ties and endorsements from Charlie Kirk's TPUSA operations / operatives, and contrived public concerns about rhetoric from the left. Video, Roger Stone, the day before the 2020 election, more below. Yeah, I'm proud to have supported Peter Ginta, the real chairman of the YRNF. Having a hell of a time in Nashville with Peter Ginta, Tex Pileski. Like, these guys are all intertwined with all of these other... These guys are all mixed and mashed in all of the National Republican Party political machine. The whole thread ties in. While shocking, this is unsurprising and was foreseen by many who closely follow campus conservatism and the like, and the sort of people recruited and fostered by that whole industry. More below. There are threads, have numerous related receipts, pictures. Holt's observation from 3 years ago. This is Jared Holt, who used to be at Right Wing Watch. I don't know where he is now. Leader of one of the most powerful GOP youth orgs today, returns to Twitter the post, great replacement theory, light to his 1.7 million followers. Oh, 2022. Remember 2022 when woke was still alive, chat? And we would say, oh my God, these guys are saying great replacement stuff. That's scary. That's Nazi rhetoric. Nowadays, that's just policy. This is what I mean. Woke is so dead. Oh my God, woke is so dead. Yeah, Charlie Kirk. There's an undeniable war on white people in the West. Not a great political environment we've got here in the U.S. where folks like Kirk feel comfortable posting racist psychobabble like this. Yeah. The representatives of the youth wing of the party have become overtly Hitlerian. And that is reflected in the overtly Hitlerian policy of the administration. That is my point. Okay? That is my point. And this didn't happen overnight. The type of that, Jared Taylor used to say for years and years was an analog to what Tucker Carlson was saying. And slowly but surely, people looked at that kind of messaging and went, this is great. I love this. And the permission structure expanded day by day. Jared Taylor is a famous white supremacist. Nowadays, it's hard to separate the Grand Duke of the KKK from like the average young Republican in the way that they communicate on this stuff. Honestly, when you go back to it, I think Gamergate did do a number on American men. Seriously. All it took was for a bunch of insecure dudes to feel like the one safe space that they had was being threatened by yucky women and gays. And they just all became like straight up neo-Nazis. And then the second wave of that Gamergate was with the rise of Andrew Tate and accelerated misogyny. Also, the subtext that you called out right up top, Trump Vance admin wants to deport people for criticizing Israel, which they say is anti-Semitic, but apparently this is not. Of course. Of course. Come on. I can't think of a more anti-Semitic thing that you can do, which is to combat anti-Semitism while simultaneously being an overt anti-Zionist. This is the maximum anti-Semitic position you can arrive at. In his 2024 campaign, Trump spread false reports of Haitian migrants eating pets, and at one of his rallies, welcomed comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage and joked about black people carving watermelons on Halloween. Liz Huston, a White House spokesperson, rejected the idea that Trump's rhetoric had anything to do with the chat members' language. Only an activist left-wing reporter would desperately try to tie President Trump into a story about a random group chat he has no affiliation with, while failing to mention the dangerous smears coming from Democrat politicians who fantasize about murdering their opponent and called Republicans Nazis and fascists. No one has been subject to more vicious rhetoric and violence than President Trump and his supporters. In the group chat, Ginta tells fellow Republicans that he spoke with the White House about an endorsement from Trump for his bid to become chairman of the National Federation. Trump and the Republican National Committee ultimately decided to stay neutral in the race. A White House official said it has no affiliation with Restore YR, that hundreds of groups asked the White House for its endorsement. Ginta was the most prominent voice in the chat, spreading racist messages, often encouraged or liked by other members. When Luke Moisman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, asked if the New Yorkers in the chat were watching an NBA playoff game, Ginta responded, "I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch monkey play ball." Ginta else refers to black people as the watermelon people. Hendricks made a similar remark in July. Bro is at a chicken restaurant ordering his food. Would he like some watermelon and Kool-Aid with that? Bro, this is like, I feel like this is so, like, this is either like 70-year-old racism or like a 7-year-old's racism. Like, this is not, do you know what I mean? Like, this is the type of racism that like 7-year-olds hear from their grandparents and then say in the playground until, you know, they actually get into trouble. They experience their first timeout or some shit. It's so strange. Oh, you're at a chicken restaurant? What's next? Watermelon and Kool-Aid? Like, what the f? Hendricks was a communication assistant for Kansas Republican Attorney General Chris Kobach until Thursday. He also said in the chat that despite political differences, he's drawn to Missouri's Young Republican organization because Missouri doesn't like F slurs. Wait, this is the guy? This is Hendricks? I think if you're built like a butch lesbian that just got out of the Navy, that is now commandeering the McDonald's as the regional manager, you should be able to say the F slur. It's actually fucked up because ladies who look like this are some of the kindest individuals on the planet. They're the most aggressive in defending social justice, and they have such kind hearts in general. This haircut is appropriation, though. Butch lesbians, fight back. Do not allow this. This is literally my non-binary aunt. Messed up. It's messed up. This is the built-in haircut of the most selfless lover who spends their entire lifetime rescuing former dogfighting pit bulls. Okay? This is like, this person would not be out of place at a No Kings rally with a protest placard that reads like, you know, hands off my body or something. Okay. Or Orange Man is a fascist. Okay. I'm going to move on. It's just crazy. Politico reached out to Denadri Herbert, a spokesman for the Attorney General who serves the Kansas GOP chair, and shared with her excerpts of the chat involving Hendricks. In response, Herbert said, "We are aware of the issues raised in your article and that Hendricks is no longer employed in Kobach's office." Great. I love Hitler. What the Yeah, I had some back and forth with the VC in Michigan. Current chair is a deer in headlights. We have a call on Wednesday. Many agree. He did say my delegates I bring will vote for the most right-wing person. Great. I love Hitler. In another exchange, Dwyer, the Kansas chair, informs Ginta that one of the Michigan's young Republicans promised him the group will vote for the most right-wing person to lead the national organization. Great. I love Hitler, Ginta responded. Dwyer reacted with a smiley face. Few minority groups are spared. Ginta, who serves as the chief of staff to the New York State Assembly member Mike Riley, ultimately fell 6 points short of winning the chairship to lead the Young Republican National Federation earlier this year. Was it like he was too racist or something? Is that what it is? Like, or was he not racist enough? Italians spared, guys, please. I think half of the dudes saying the shit are Italian. Earlier this year, Stefanik accepted an award for the New York State Young Republicans. She lauded Ginta for his tremendous leadership in August and had her campaign and the political PAC she leads donate to that state organization. Alex DeGrasse, a senior advisor for Stefanik, said the congresswoman was absolutely appalled to learn about the alleged comments made by leaders of the New York State Young Republicans and other state YRs in a large national group chat. According to the description provided by Politico, the comments were heinous, anti-Semitic, racist, and unacceptable. He continued, noting Stefanik has never employed anyone in the chat. If the description by Politico was accurate, Congressman Stefanik calls for any New York young Republicans responsible for these horrific comments in this chat to step down immediately. Stone also condemned the comments in a statement. Do we even believe that prominent national Republicans don't also speak exactly like this? I certainly don't. I believe that they do speak exactly like this. Am I crazy for this assessment? Because, like, I'm old enough to remember at least Stefanik quite literally endorsed a person who did say that about Adolf Hitler in a New York local race. That's not even a joke. She did do that. Okay, let's look it up. Elise Stefanik Hitler. Hey, Hasan, do you still take finasteride? I do. Where is it? Yeah. GOP House candidate. Why is this on imdb.com? What the It's a Rolling Stone article. GOP House candidate backed by party leadership said Hitler is the kind of leader we need. Carl Palladino, whose campaign for New York's 23rd congressional district is backed by House Republican Conference Chair Representative Elise Stefanik, made the comments to the Our House radio show host Peter Hunt. Okay. Hey, son, I've been a fan for a while, but what the is this? Why haven't you addressed this? And it's an anti-Piker link. You know my ass is not clicking on that on screen. Yeah, bro said that on radio, dude. I remember this about Elise Stefanik because Elise Stefanik has been seen as a champion of the rights of Jews in America, famously, with her blistering critique of numerous presidents of elite institutions of higher learning that weren't sufficiently pro-Israel. And she got a couple people fired as a consequence of her scathing interrogations. He's still not addressing it and it's slightly concerning. Listen, you got to sometimes let your homies kiss you goodnight, okay? And tuck you into bed. It's all good. It's not gay, man. Of course, I've never seen this alleged chat room thread, he said. If it's authentic, I would, of course, denounce any such comments in the strongest possible terms. This would surprise me as it's inconsistent with Peter that I know. Although I know him in his capacity as the head of the New York Young Republicans, where I thought he did a good job. Few minority groups are spared from the Young Republicans group chat. Their rhetoric, normalized at most points as dark humor, mirrors some popular conservative political commentators, podcasters, and comedians amid a national erosion of what is considered acceptable discourse. Ginta's line on darker skinned pilot, for example, echoes one used by slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk last year when he said, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, oh boy, I hope he's qualified. Yep. Walker also used the moniker Eye Patch McCain. Originally, what? No, that's unacceptable. If I catch these yelling at what I said back in the day about who they are referring to as Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw, I'm going to lose it because these dudes are so cynical, okay? They love talking about how up it is when a young leftist is out there making jokes, cracking jokes about a congressperson by the name of Daniel Jedediah Crenshaw. Okay. Yeah, how dare they? He's a hero. I was young when I did those jokes. I'm not young anymore, but I was a young leftist when I made those jokes. I'm an old leftist and I still make jokes like that, but I was young at some point. Yeah, one eye hole joke and I'm a monster. Anyway, Crenshaw lost his eye while serving as a Navy SEAL in Afghanistan. Walker also makes the remark, I prefer my war heroes not captured, a repeat of a similar 2015 line from Donald Trump. Art Gibson, a professor at the University of Dayton who specializes in white racial extremism, surmised the young Republicans in the chat were influenced by Trump's language, which he said is often hyperbolic and emotionally charged. Trump's persistent use of hostile, often inflammatory language that normalizes aggressive discourse in conservative circles can be incredibly influential on young operatives who are still trying to figure out what is that political discourse, Gibson said. White supremacist symbols. Gibson reviewed multiple excerpts of the Young Republicans chat provided by Politico. One was a late July message where Moseman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, mused about how the group could win support for their preferred candidate by linking an opponent to white supremacist groups. But Moseman then realized the plan could backfire. Kansas Young Republicans could end up becoming attracted to that opponent. Oh my God. Oh my God. Come on, dude. Like, come on. Bro, that's like, what more do you need to say? That's it. That's the heart of that's the heart of the story. The base likes it. That's it. Can we get them to start realizing Nazi edits with her, like pro-Nazi and fascistic propaganda? He asked the group. OMG, I love this plan, Rachel Hope responded. The only problem is we will lose the Kansas delegation, Moseman said. Hope and the two Kansas Young Republicans in the chat reacted with a laughing face to the message. Hope did not respond to requests for comment. Too woke take, but I think calling Abbott Hot Wheels is bad, just like Eye Patch McCain, but I don't know. Yeah, it is a too woke take, I think. Gibson said the Young Republicans' conversations reminded him of online discussions between members of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. You say it once or twice as a joke, but you say it 251 times, it's no longer a joke, Gibson said. The more we repeat certain ideas, the more real they become to us. Weeks later, someone in the chat saying, staying in a hotel asked the members, guess what room we're in? 1488, Dwyer responds. White supremacists use the number 1488 because 14 is the number of words in the white supremacist slogan. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children, and H is the eighth letter in the alphabet, and 88 is often used as shorthand for Heil Hitler. In another conversation in February, Ginta talks approvingly about the Orange County Teenage Republican Organization in New York, which appears to be part of a network of national teenage Republicans, and how he was pleased with his young members' ideological bent. They support slavery and all that mega-based, he said. The term based in internet culture, I love the way that like boomers try to explain to other boomers what like internet commentary is, like internet language is. But it is pretty funny where they're like, they support slavery and all that shit. They're mega based. Yeah, man. That's a really good national campaign. Like, I think this is the type of shit that like even boomers would be disgusted by. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. We're not like in, I don't know, 1894. You know what I mean? Like, this is not like this is stuff that's been well established in American history at this point. Bro, what is anyone disgusted by at this point? Where is the bottom? I mean, this is not the bottom. Because remember, there's like esoteric neo-Nazi groups online that go even beyond this stuff. Give it a couple more years and you'll see where the bottom is. Except it won't be the bottom. There will always be a new bottom. Bottomless mimosas. In a statement, Orange County GOP Chair Courtney Canfield Green said the party was disappointed to learn this teen group was mentioned in the chat. Our teen volunteers have no affiliation with the New York Republicans. She said this behavior has no home within the Republican Party of Orange County. Ed Cox, the chair of the New York State GOP, also condemned the remarks made in the chat. I was shocked and disgusted to learn about these reports and comments made by a small group of young Republicans. Dude, this is how all young Republicans are. They are so unimaginably groped up. Ironically enough, Charlie Kirk was trying to pack this up to the best of his ability before his untimely demise. But we already know this is exactly what young Republicans look like, because the ones that work for the Ron DeSantis team couldn't stop themselves from placing the Black Sun logo behind Ron DeSantis edits. Okay? It is so unimaginably common. Most Republicans at this stage, most young Republicans at this stage identify by these vices. Okay? They find this to be cool and based. Like they They want to restore some kind of like full-blown fascist movement. Untimely? Come on, man. I mean, I can say that. That's appropriate to say. Jesus Christ. Come on, man. He was 31. He was literally like, that's ridiculous. Chill. Okay. Anyway, members of the Telegram chat speak about their personal lives too. Extensive discussions about everyday lives include one exchange about how devoutly Catholic some chat members are and how often they attend church. Many of the slurs, epithets, and violent language used in the chat often appear to be intended as jokes. Mosiman was derided by members of the chat as a B word and the S word. Stay in the closet F word. Walker of New York also jested in July, though he is the group's main target for the same epithet. The group used slurs against Asians too. My people built the train tracks with the Chinese, Walker says at one point, referring to his Italian ancestors. Let his people go, Maligno responds. Keep the C words, though. In another instance, Mosiman tells the group that the Spanish came to America and had sex with every single woman. Sex is gay, Dwyer writes. Sex, it was rape, Mosiman replies. Epic, Walker says. I need you to understand that the age range of these people is 18 to 40 in this group chat. It's not 12 to 14, okay? It's 18 to 40. There are like, I don't know how old some of these guys are, but they're not like 16 years old in a Xbox Live lobby where they're going, rape is epic, Omega based. You're cringe if you have consensual sex. Like the very fact that he said epic instead of based implies that he is at least a faillennial. Just understand that. This dude is a 9gag memester. It was pictured with Mike Lawler too. Another Bobby Walker photo. Dude, he is so rotund. Oh my God, he looks like Kyle Rittenhouse bass boosted. I just realized all of these young Republicans turn into Kyle Rittenhouse. Matt Walsh coming to defend this as edgy. Virginia Attorney General candidate fantasizes about murdering children, and no Democrat at any level call for him to resign or denounce him in any serious way. Meanwhile, a few college kids make edgy group jokes in a group chat, and conservatives are tripping over themselves to denounce it and disavow and call for fines and resignations. Absolutely pathetic. If you still playing by the rules the left sets, but doesn't even follow themselves, you're hopeless, completely hopeless. They called rape epic, and this proud Christian's response is to engage in whataboutism. I don't know, man. I feel a lot like this kind of only works if the opposition party goes, you know what, you're right. Yeah, it's edgy locker room talk when it's Republicans, and it's hateful terrorist rhetoric when it's the left. And the hateful terrorist rhetoric from the left is sometimes just saying that Trump's policies are fascist. Like that's just an objective reflection of contemporary events matching up with historic patterns of fascist ideology, fascist movements. Okay, that's not terroristic threats that must be stamped out. That's just the truth. And I say this as someone who does sometimes go above and beyond with my rhetoric. Okay, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. Yeah, the real F slur is fascist. Anyway, there's more explicit malice in some phrases too, especially when they turn their ire on opponents outside the chat, such as leader of the rival Grow YR Slate, Hayden Paget. Who defeated Ginta and was reelected chairman of the Young Republican National Federation this summer. So you mean Hayden? Sorry. That one caught me off guard. That one's... I'm not laughing this up. Hayden Efsler, who wrote the resolution himself, Ginta asked the group about the National Young Republicans chair in late May. True, missed opportunity to make the first name Gaydon. That's also a good one. You're not wrong. It's just, this is funny because like, if they weren't like hateful and were gay themselves, this would be perfectly appropriate language. You know what I mean? Like, this is not even remotely heinous in like the average gay Discord server like mine. Okay. It's just, this doesn't even like meet the standard of like offensive speech in that situation. But of course, it's the energy behind it and the context that makes it up when you really consider it. Okay. Rape Hayden Moseman. This guy, man, this guy's a real threat. Okay, this is different. This guy keeps constantly talking about raping people. I don't understand what the going on in this dude. Adolf Paget is in the F word bunker as we speak. Paget responded to the chat's language in a statement. The Young Republican National Federation condemns all forms of racism, anti-Semitism, and hate, Paget said. I want to be clear that such behavior is entirely inconsistent with our values and has no place within our organization or the broader conservative movement. Ginta also had expletive-laden criticism of the Young Republicans in the states that were supporting or leaning towards Paget's faction. Minnesota F words, he messaged, continuing, Arkansas, inbred California, Nebraska, revolt in our favor, block their bind, and have a majority of their delegates Maryland, fat stinky Jew, Rhode Island, traitorous C words, who I will eradicate from the face of this planet. And no, it's not cracker. It's the one used towards women, unless you're in Australia, in which case you use it all the time. Ginta also said he planned to make one of the competing Young Republicans unalive himself on the convention floor. Dude, come on. You're dropping the F slur left and right. You're calling people like stinky Jews, but you can't say kill himself? Oh my God. What is wrong with Zoomers, man? What the happened? TikTok break my so hard. In another instance, like that's crazy. You're saying the N-word in one message, and then the next, you're acting like the TikTok TOS moderators are up your ass. You say unalive. What the is this? This makes no sense. This is a good case study in the case that they had any anti-Israel sentiment. This would be headline news everywhere. I think this is still a big story, regardless, because of how transparently racist these guys are. I think this is like, I mean, I'm sure the Republicans will be like, oh, wow, this is really up. But, oh, well. This is going to put the Young Republicans organization who demanded resignations of the group chat members in an awkward spot. Who are they to say it's bad if the vice president says it's pearl clutching? By the way, I told you that this was going to be the response from J.D. Vance and even Donald Trump, and if it even gets to Donald Trump at all. I love how in a story where someone called rape epic, the thing you were most upset about was when one of the literal Nazis said unalive. Yes. Because on the one hand, they're talking about putting their opponents in gas chambers, but they can't say kill himself. Like that juxtaposition melts my mind. That's the point. You can't on the one hand be like, oh, I can't wait to put people in gas chambers, and then also are like, I'm going to unalive them in the gas chamber. It's like getting mad at Hitler for being in an inappropriate age gap relationship. Okay. Like, what the are we doing? Like, it's crazy. Oh, Jesus. I was going to say you're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. Breonna Douglas, Sam's wife and Vermont Young Republicans National Committee member, replied to her husband's message. Breonna Douglas did not respond to repeated requests for comment. If we ever had a leak of this chat, yeah. Politico's report detailed how organization was missing required financial disclosure forms. Subsequent efforts to fill the forms revealed that the organization was more than $28,000 in debt. NYSYR account be like 500 balding cream, 1,000 Ozempic. Walker sent him one message. They'll be declaring bankruptcy after this. I just know it. I drained $10K tonight to pay for my next vacation in Italy. Ginta appeared to joke about the organization bank account. I spent it on massage. Great. Can't wait to get sued by our venture, Walker replies. All right. Anyway, the story basically ends with, in one instance, he joked about bombing the Young Republican National Federation's convention in Nashville and then remarked, just kidding, for our assigned FBI tracker. In another, he considered the totality of the 1,000 messages he and his peers had written and what would happen if the public saw them come to light. If we ever had a leak on this chat, we would be cooked for real, he wrote. Yeah, I mean, do I think that this will... Yeah, it turns out they're wrong. The VP defends it. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I think in this day and age, we've gotten to a point where this kind of like shameless, transparent, overt white supremacist, fascist rhetoric is seen as a benefit by those who see the future of the Republican Party. Like, that's the reason why J.D. Vance is defending it.